Welcome to the Muscle Building Mastery podcast, where guys that want to build muscle come to learn how to do it properly. We understand that there's more to building muscle than mindlessly throwing weights around and chugging mass gainer shakes. We're not interested in quick fixes or anabolic assistance. We're interested in mastering the art, science and skill set required to stack on real muscle and strength. My name's Andy Clements, and for the last 12 years I've devoted my life to figuring out how guys like us who don't have amazing genetics, don't have 5 hours a day to spend in the gym, and don't want to take steroids as a shortcut can build insane amounts of muscle and strength in weeks and months, not years and decades. This podcast is the result of all the lessons I've learned along the way, and it will give you the blueprint to building more muscle in less time. To get you started, head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week workout plan. Boom, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Muscle Building Mastery podcast. My name's Andy Clements, and this is a really special episode for two reasons. Reason number one is this is the first episode where it's going to be audio only. So if you're listening to this on your phone right now, on your computer, on your laptop, whatever you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes or Anchor, you are exclusively listening to this podcast for the first time ever, because I'm not doing it on YouTube anymore. For the reason I want to make this the podcast like a real big priority. And I really want to put the best possible content out there so people can start building muscle and strength for free. And I don't do it as often when I've got to do it on video, because video takes longer. Like, I've got to set the camera up and I've got to make sure I don't look an absolute mess and all that sort of stuff, right? So I know it seems stupid, but I'm going to do it completely on audio right now. So it's going to be easy for me to commit to every single day. That's cool, right? So that's the first reason this is a special episode. The second reason this is a special episode is because we've got some awesome content to share with you. I'm going to share with you right now how to build more strength than you ever have before by spending less time in the gym, right? Now, how do other people go about building more strength? Most people's first thought is just to put more weight on the bar and just see if it'll move, right? The second thing to think of is let's just eat more food. The third thing to think of is let's take some drugs, right? I'm not going to tell you to do any of those things. What I'm going to tell you to do is spend less time in the gym, but do it in a very specific and calculated way, so that you can lift more weight, so that you can stack more strength on, and therefore stack more muscle on, right? Because although lifting more weight doesn't necessarily always translate to new muscle, if you do it in the right way, you're going to build more muscle by lifting 150 kilos than you are going to lift 100 kilos, right? If you're doing it in the same way, of course you're going to build more muscle, because you're going to put more force production through your muscle. So the framework that I want to introduce you to, guys, in this podcast is low volume training. Now, low volume training absolutely changed my life. And when I explain to you, you might not know what it means right now. That's okay. I'm going to explain it. But when I explain to you what low volume training is, you're going to be like, oh my God, where has this been? Right? So I'm going to explain to you what low volume training is right now. So let me tell you the backstory of this first. Around 2013, 2014, I kind of made some progress in the gym, right? And I kind of got a little bit of what training was about, and I'd built a little bit of muscle, I'd done a little bit of research, I'd lost a bit of fat, but I was still a reasonably skinny dude, you know. You wouldn't turn heads on the street or anything like that, you know. I wasn't massive. But you see, the size and the strength wasn't there. I was chasing it, and I knew I could do better. I just had this feeling inside myself. I was like, I know I'm capable of more than this. But I'd come unstuck. Like, I didn't know how I could get over this little molehill that I was stuck on, right? And I wanted to graduate out of my medium t-shirts and my small t-shirts, like, depending on where I shopped at. Sometimes it was a small, sometimes it was medium. And I was filling the small out, but it was still a small, you know what I mean? And I was like, I want to be in the big boy shirts, I want to be in the large t-shirts, and I just wasn't. And I wanted to put on the strength that I knew would be really impressive in the gym, and not just impressive to other people. Like, I'm not gonna lie, obviously I did care about what other people thought. Like, I did. It's always nice to have that feeling that, you know, I can sometimes get now where you lift a weight that not many people in that gym can lift, and you could just see out the corner of your eye people looking over like, damn, that guy's strong, like almost envious. And like, I know it sounds egotistical, but everybody wants a feeling like that, right? And I wanted that kind of feeling. But it wasn't just about that. Like, the bigger feeling for me about the impressive thing was I wanted to impress myself. I wanted to look at the way that I had on the bar and be impressed with myself. And at that moment in time, I wasn't impressed. Like, I was lifting like 100 kilo on deadlift, maybe 90 kilos sometimes. I don't know what it was. But it wasn't a lot of weight, right? And if you're lifting that right now, I don't want you to be discouraged. Because when you start implementing the things that I'm going to talk about in this podcast, you're going to go massively up in strength as well. But all of that stuff aside, all of that superficial stuff aside, what I really wanted the confidence that went with it. The confidence that goes alongside filling out those t-shirts and going up a t-shirt size, right? And the confidence that goes alongside slapping an extra 20 kg on your deadlift or your bench press or your squat, or, you know, getting up to 4 or 5 plates a side on your big heavy pulls, whatever it is, right? The confidence that gives you to go on and carry on achieving more and more and more. You guys know what I'm talking about with that? Is that making sense? Like, that's what I really want. I want the confidence. How many of you guys want that as well, right? So, up until that point, I kind of swallowed up this mainstream belief that you had to spend hours and hours in the gym to build muscle, right? I used to spend like 2 or 3, this is not an exaggeration, you guys, like, if you know my backstory, you know this is true. Up until that point, I've swallowed up the mainstream belief you had to spend hours in the gym to build muscle. I used to spend 2 or 3 hours a day in the gym. Every single day, I was spending 2 or 3 hours a day. And I had no results to speak of really to show for it. And I can remember at this time, this is how ridiculous it was, I used to have bragging contests with my mates about who trained for longer. Right? I used to have bragging contests with these guys. Like, I can remember mates of mine saying, I've trained for 2 hours today. But I've trained for 2.5 hours today. I've trained for 3 hours a day. And it's like, no, like, what are you bragging about? The fact you've got no life. Like, I must have had no life whatsoever, because I just used to spend my life in the gym and I didn't even have the results to show for it. And I can remember this one time, me and a friend of mine did this 1,000 rep workout. We found this 1,000 rep workout for chest online, right? So it wasn't even like a leg workout or like a full body workout. It was just 1,000 reps on chest. And we thought it made us hardcore. We thought it made us, tough to do this 1,000 rep workout. But I don't think we even got to the end of it. We got through like 800 reps of like ridiculous, just 800 reps of presses and flies, which is just ridiculous. And we ran out of time. We had to go to work. We had other things to do, and it was like 3.5 hours later. It was madness. And we didn't even see the results or the benefit for it. You know, we sacrificed all that time, and yeah, we got sore, but is the goal of training to get sore? No, the goal of training is to build muscle. The goal of training is to put force and intensity through your muscle. It's not to make yourself sore. Sore is sometimes a byproduct of a new stimulus, so it's not always a bad thing, but you're not training to make yourself sore, guys, you know, and this is what I didn't understand when I first started out. So, I was in a bit of a daft spot, really, and I started getting really fed up of not putting on the size and the strength I really wanted to, and I knew the way I trained had to change. The problem was, though, I didn't know how to change my training. All I'd ever known was high volume marathon workouts that went on for hours and hours and hours, and like 500, 700,000 rep workouts, which were stupid. And I kept trying to lift heavier, but my strength just wasn't budging. My only answer to can I build more strength was to put more weight on the bar. Right? And it just wasn't happening. Like, I'd put more weight on the bar and the bar would get heavier, but the bar wouldn't move because I couldn't lift it because I wasn't strong enough, right? This was the cycle that I was going through. And I began to sort of contemplate, like, maybe this is as far as I can go naturally. Maybe it isn't possible to get really big and strong without taking steroids. That was what my thought process was at the time. And I was kind of a little bit down, a bit depressed about that, because I didn't want to take steroids. And I knew I wasn't going to take steroids. Like, no matter what happened, I wasn't going to do that. No judgment to anybody who does. Absolutely their choice, absolutely fair enough for them. But for me, that's my personal choices. I want to stay natural. I want to do the whole thing natural. I want to keep my body as healthy as I can, and you know, not mess about with any of that stuff that I don't really understand, to be totally honest. And I began to think, well, the people I'm looking at that have achieved these results, maybe the majority of them are on drugs, and maybe I can't achieve it. So I began to get a little bit down about that, and I was like verging on giving up, really, because I was like, I don't know what else to do. So it was really, really lucky for me that around that time, a friend of mine sent me a video on YouTube of 90s UK bodybuilder Dorian Yates. So if you ever heard of Dorian Yates, he was like I think he won like the Mr. Olympia 6 or 7 times, 6 times I think, and he was from Birmingham, and he was just a cool guy. He was just like the biggest dude you've ever seen in your life, and he's like one of the classic bodybuilders of all time, and he was big in the 90s, right? And he, on this video that my friend sent me of Dorian Yates, he was talking about his training style, and what he said just kind of blew my mind. It was like, I was like, what? Like I couldn't get my head around what he said. Dorian said, and he revealed on this video, that he used to flip the standard approach of training on its head, right? He said that if you had the energy to hit 4 to 5 sets on every single exercise in your workout, you weren't training hard enough. Now, let me say that again, because that bit, that when I heard that jarred me. He said that if you had the energy to hit 4 to 5 sets on every single exercise in your workout, you weren't training hard enough. And for me, doing 1,000 rep workouts, doing like hundreds of sets in a workout, like 4 to 5 sets was too much. I was like, what? Like, oh my God, I'm doing something seriously wrong. So I carried on watching the video, and he sort of explained what he meant. He said that instead of the sort of traditional marathon-based workouts, Dorian viewed his workouts as a series of short sprints. Now, let me just fixate on the terminology there for a minute. Marathon workouts, which is what I used to do, and what a lot of people do, it's like conventional wisdom tells us to train for long periods of time. Now, think about marathon runners for a minute now. Let's think about Mo Farah. Top guy, absolute incredible beast machine of a man, but not very muscular. Okay, not very muscular. I've got a lot of respect for the guy, but he ain't a bodybuilder, right? He's a marathon runner, and he looks like a marathon runner. And then if you look at the opposite to that, or not the opposite, but the other extreme in terms of athletics, runners. Look at some of the sprinters, some of the athletes. Look at someone like Usain Bolt, right? Now, I'm not saying he's a bodybuilder, but he's a sprinter. He's explosive. Look at the kind of physique he's got in comparison to someone like Mo Farah. Like, what does that tell you about the different training styles? A sprint workout, a series of short sprints like Dorian was talking about, clearly works a lot better for building those fast twitch muscle fibers than a big long marathon workout. Or you just smash your muscle over and over and over and over and over again. Does that make sense? So back to what Dorian was saying, whereas most people hit their 4 to 5 sets at like 50 to 60% intensity, Dorian boiled it down to one single set per exercise, okay? And by doing this allowed him to channel all of his energy and all of his focus and all of his aggression into that one set. So there's only one set as opposed to 4 or 5 on every single exercise. So he would, do all I'll tell you about the framework in a minute, but he will do all his warm-ups, and then he'd go into one set, and he had one chance to generate all the muscle damage he possibly could on that muscle, instead of subconsciously saving all of his energy over the 4, 5, 6, or even 10 sets. There's some of these German volume training approaches and stuff like that. Like, how can you not subconsciously save your energy for the next 9 sets? Like, even if you feel like you because if you go 100%, there's no way you can go 100% again and again and again and again without having to lower the weight, without having to lower some variable, because it's impossible, right? So what this meant was he could lift way more weight, he could generate way more muscle damage, and he could actually save a little bit of time in the gym as well. He didn't have to spend all day in the gym, right? So, as you can imagine, this was a game changer for me when I found this out. Like, I watched this video, I was like, oh my God. I had to kind of get my ego back in check, because I felt a bit called out after it. But it was a game changer for me when I kind of got over myself, right? So I started implementing my version of low volume training. So low volume, essentially volume just means the amount of work of something. The amount of something is the volume of something, right? So the amount of sets and the amount of reps and the amount of total work you do in the gym, it means volume. So low volume means a low amount of total work, but it doesn't mean an easy amount of work, okay? So I started implementing my version of low volume training, and I instantly saw like massive results. I ended up going from, what was I deadlifting when I started this? I think it was like 100 or maybe 120. Like at a push it was 120, but I would say more like 100 kilos when I first started implementing this style of training, right? And when I sort of got a level of mastery over this kind of training, I got up to, before the coronavirus pandemic hit, I was at a 220 kilo deadlift for 3 reps. That was where I got to, and I was pretty pleased with that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be Eddie Hall, right? I'm not going to sit here and claim to be Arnold Schwarzenegger or anybody who's like breaking world records. But for me, for the skinny kid who just wanted to go graduate to a medium t-shirt from a small t-shirt, being able to deadlift 220 kilos, I don't even know how many pounds that is. It's like 450 pounds, something like that, right? I was absolutely over the moon with it. I was absolutely buzzing with it. And so that's the power of low volume training, you guys. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take you through the 4 steps to this strategy, so you can sort of take this little snippet here and you can implement it and get in the gym and actually start building strength, right? So step number 1 of the low volume training strategy, as I've implemented it, is do as many warm-ups as necessary. So whatever exercise you're doing, whether you're doing a deadlift or a squat or a dumbbell press or a bench press or a row or whatever you're doing, right? Do as many warm-ups as you need to do. So if it's the first exercise, you're probably going to need to do a little bit more warm-ups, a few more warm-up sets, because your body's going to be quite cold, right? And you're going to need to push some blood in that target area and warm the joints up and do all that sort of stuff. Now, my caveat to this first step is that you don't want to go above 5 reps, because if you're going above 5 reps, then you're going to be sort of exhausting your muscle and taking resources away from your working sets, and you haven't got many chances, right? As I'm going to tell you in a minute, you've not got many chances at these working sets, so you need to save your energy. So use your warm-ups as physical rehearsal to A, prime your nervous system, B, prime your muscle, and C, prevent against injuries, and just to get your head right and ready so you know how this weight's going to feel, right? So my last couple of warm-up sets might be just 1 rep each, right? So I might just be, if I'm working up to do a top set, I'm going to tell you about a top set in a minute, but if I'm working up to do a set on 40 kilos on a bench press or something like on a dumbbell press or something like that, right? Then I might do 1 rep on 40 kilos as my final rep, just to get my body primed to what 40 kilos feels like, right? Or if it's a bench press, 100 or 120 kilos, whatever, right? I just might do a single rep that's not going to exhaust me, because my top set's not going to be a single rep, but it's going to prime my body and my nervous system to know what that weight feels like, so it's not a shock to me when I start lifting it in my set. Does that make sense? So that's how I do this. That's how I do step 1. Step number 2, you hit your top set. Now, we call it a top set because it's the top end, right? Now, the top set means the heaviest set you do on that exercise, okay? So you're going to do 2 sets in total. You're going to do a top set and a back-off set. That's step 3. Step 2 is a top set. Now, you're going to do the top set of 5 to 8 reps, right? So I don't suggest going lower than 5 reps. Like, occasionally, if you're really trying to push your strength up and you're just trying to really go through a strength phase and push it up occasionally, then I'll go down to as low as 3 reps. That's what I was doing when I got the 3 reps for 220. But in general, don't go below 5 reps, because otherwise you're pushing more into the realm of strength and powerlifting than you are muscle building, right? Now, strength is important for muscle growth, but it's not it's not so important that we're going to sacrifice our actual muscle growth for it, right? So we need to actually be stimulating muscle at the same time as building strength. And if you're going too low, if you're doing 1 rep maxes or 2 rep maxes all the time, then you're going to end up not building muscle. You're just going to be priming your nervous system, okay? So that's the step 2. Step 2, hit a top set of between 5 and 8 reps, and your goal with that set is to reach failure between 5 and 8 reps, right? So that's your gauge for picking your weight. So let's go back to the dumbbell press. Like if you're a flat dumbbell press, for example, if you hit your top set on, let's say, 40 kilos in each hand or 30 kilos, whatever's appropriate for you, it doesn't matter, and you reach failure at 40 kilos in each hand, on your dumbbell press set at 7 reps, and you can't get like even if you had a spot, you couldn't get another rep out. Like, you've absolutely exhausted your muscle, and you've done it with perfect form and accuracy and all the rest of that stuff, and you've exhausted your muscle at 7 reps and you can't get any more reps out. That is a job well done, okay? Because you have hit your goal. You've reached failure between 5 and 8 reps. So then what you'll do is take a couple of minutes off. You'll let your muscle return to a somewhat recovered state. You'll let your heart rate come down to normal. You'll get your breathing return to normal, and you'll get yourself ready for your back off set. Now, your back off set is your last set on this exercise. So we're going to do 2 sets on this exercise, top set of 5 to 8, and the back off set is going to be 8 to 12 reps. So your goal with the back off set is exactly the same as the top set, but it's just a slightly lighter weight and a slightly higher rep range. So you're going to go between 8 and 12 reps. So if you've done 40 kilos for 7 reps on the dumbbell press on set 1, then on set 2 you might drop to 35 kilos, for example, or whatever's appropriate, and you might get 10 or 9 or 11 reps or whatever it is between 8 and 12, and you're going to reach absolute failure at that number, right? So then once you've reached failure at that number, then you've done your job for step number 3. You hit the back off set and you've reached failure between 8 and 12 reps. Now, if you get more than 12 reps, if you don't reach failure, like you don't have to stop at 12 reps, but if you reach failure at 15 reps, right, you know that you've undershot your weight, and you know that you need to go up in weight next time you do it, right? That's just the thing to note down there. So the more you do this, the more you'll get good at knowing how to gauge your strength and what kind of weights you're capable of lifting. But the key here is to actually go to failure. Like, actually push yourself towards failure. Don't leave reps in the tank. That's ridiculous. Push yourself and get to failure, and then you'll know what you're capable of achieving. And step number 4 is going to help you with this in terms of progression, because step number 4 is to write down what you got and beat it next week for continued growth. Okay, so get a logbook. And it's going to cost you like £1 or $1 or whatever, right? Or €1, wherever you listen to this. We've got listeners all over the world at the minute. But write down what exactly you got in terms of your weight. So if you got, like I say, if you got 40 kilos on the bench press, then you write 40 times 7, or how many reps you got, right? And you write down exactly what you got, and then date it, and then write down all the reps and all the weights you got in that workout and all the exercises. Date it, and then come back to it and refer back to it next time. Keep it in your gym bag. Refer back to it next time, and then make sure you beat whatever numbers you got on that workout. So if today you go in the gym and you get 40 kilos on your dumbbell press for 7 reps, then when you come in the gym next time, you may be damn sure that you either beat your reps, or you beat your weight, or you beat both. Okay, so you don't go less than 40 kilos times 7. If you get 40 kilos times 8, great. If you get 42 kilos times 6, great, right? But you don't go down on both numbers. You go up on at least one number, and you stay and you definitely don't go down on weight. So that's your strategy for the low volume approach. Now, this means you've got 2 working sets per exercise, so you only got 2 chances to smash your muscle. This ain't the high volume approach anymore. This ain't the 10 sets of 10. This ain't the 4-5 sets per exercise. You've not got tons of chances to make up for sloppy work. You've got to up your game. You've got to be accurate, and you've got to be intense. You've got to work hard. When you get into that set, you've got to get after it. Like, I'm not the type of guy that sits here and claims that pressing a dumbbell can cure cancer, like some people out there, right? I'm not gonna sit here and say this is the absolute end of the world if you don't go to war with your set. But what I will stress is importance. If you want to build muscle, you've got to get after it, and there can be no more important thing while you're in that set on your mind than that set. You've got to get absolutely after it. 100% intensity, 100% aggression, channel it all into that set. If you do that, your strength will skyrocket from what you are now, and you will be amazed at what you can achieve without touching drugs, without doing any of that stuff, right? It's just you smashing through an intensity that you never knew you had, and you do have it in you. You 100% have it in you. Now, once I started employing this approach, the low volume, high intensity approach, my strength doubled across the board, right? I went from years and years and years of having no strength, wondering why I can't get a barbell to budge with more than 100 kilo on it, to doubling my strength. Like I said, I pulled the heaviest I've ever pulled from the floor is 220. The heaviest I've ever pulled from a rack, I think, is 250 or 260. Yeah, I think something like that. And then, I'm not going to list all my numbers for every exercise. That'd be ridiculously egotistical. But the point is, my strength went up ridiculous amount, right? On some exercises, it tripled. That's not an exaggeration. On some exercises, it tripled. Right, my strength, I couldn't believe what was going on. But all I did was follow the formula. I did the warm-ups, I did the top set, I did the back-off set, I channeled my aggression, channeled my intensity every single time. I wrote down what I got every single time, and I beat it. And then I kept beating it. And within a year, I was night and day difference. Within 2 years, I could unrecognizable, And not only did my strength double, but as a side effect of that, I got a hell of a lot bigger. I got a lot bigger. And there was also a certain density to that muscle that never been there before. You can just tell when you look at somebody who lifts heavy and they lift with intensity and they lift with aggression, as opposed to someone who's obsessed with the pink dumbbells, right? And obsessed with the bands and obsessed with the accessories, right? And they don't ever put any weight on the bar. Don't get me wrong, there's resistance bands have a place, chains have a place, all these things have a place, but until you start putting some weight on the bar, until you start harnessing some aggression, you ain't going to build any muscle. So there's a certain density to people's physique that started to appear on mine. And again, I'm not saying I'm Dorian Yates, I'm not saying I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm not trying to brag here, but I'm just saying that I could tell tangibly when my physique changed, and it was as a result of employing this high aggression, high intensity, low volume approach. Now, so I grew a lot of muscle and doubled my strength using this strategy, and so did a lot of people that I got to help, which was absolutely awesome. But what was really awesome was that I actually fell in love with training again, right? Because I was starting to get a little bit fed up of the 1,000 rep workouts. I was starting to get a little bit fed up of spending hours in the gym, and I was getting really, really fed up of not being able to lift the weight I wanted to lift. So I started to fall in love with training again when I started to achieve this level of success. And I started to believe it was actually possible that I could carry on building my body for the long term, as in for as long as I wanted to stay training, which is probably going to be forever, I'm never going to stop, without taking steroids, without touching drugs. And the process was a lot simpler than I could have ever imagined. So much simpler than I could have ever imagined, you guys. And if you employ this strategy, if you just follow them 4 steps that I've given you in this podcast, you will transform your physique 100%. Now, let me just tell you quickly about what happened to Lauren. Lauren is a client of mine, or was a client of mine before the coronavirus pandemic, was when we were doing the bodybuilding stuff, right? And she came to me having never spent any real time in a gym before. She came to me in August of 2018. That was when I first met her, and she'd never really spent any time in a gym before. And she said to me, "Andy, I want to compete in a bodybuilding show. I want to compete in a bodybuilding show in 1 year's time." And I sat there, I was like, whew, okay, we got some work to do. And she's like, yeah, we've got some work to do. Right, so she wasn't out of shape or anything like that, but a bodybuilding show is a lot different to just being not out of shape, right? So I introduced her to this framework, and she completely transformed her physique. And not only did she get on stage, because it's a big achievement to get on stage in the first place, right? It's a big achievement to actually just get on stage in the first place when so many people say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a show, I'm going to compete, blah, 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 and they end up doing 6 weeks worth of a diet and they pull out, right? She said she was going to do a show. She laid that intention out a year in advance, and I introduced her to this framework, among a few other things, just simple stuff. We introduced her to low volume, high intensity approach, and she got on stage and she won her first bodybuilding competition. And she got the trophy, she got the invite to the British finals, the national championships, she got the photo took, she felt amazing, she looked amazing, all the stuff. And a large part of it was because we approached training in a sensible way, in an intelligent way, instead of trying to just out volume everybody. We brought the volume right down and we brought the intensity right up, and she actually built muscle. She built strength, but she built muscle, and she could compete and win a bodybuilding show. How awesome is that? And this is like what happened to a woman, right? And a woman has a lot less testosterone, as you probably know, than a man does. So their ability to build muscle is a lot lower, which is why women are generally smaller than us men. Okay? So if you are a man listening to this right now, and this is what can happen to a young woman who can do this, when you implement the strategy I've just given you for free on this podcast, imagine what will happen to you. Does that make sense? So that's pretty much it for this podcast. I've gone a little bit longer on this podcast. It's nearly half an hour long now, but I want you guys to understand that, because that is the most powerful thing that I could possibly share right now. The low volume approach it changed my life. It changed my clients' lives. And it'll change your life as well and your training completely when you implement it. So go ahead, start implementing that right now. Next time you're in the gym, do a low volume training session instead of a high volume one, and drop me a line, let me know how it goes, because I'm excited to see the impact this can have on your life. That's pretty much it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want a free training program, head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, please, and leave me a review if you like it. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you next time on the Muscle Building Mastery podcast. Bye. If you're ready to stop wasting time in the gym and start mastering the skill of muscle building, go check out www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week muscle building workout plan. I have specifically formulated this workout plan to take you through the 3 stages of mastering your body, layering on a more advanced training methodology each week as you progress. That means that regardless of where you are with your training right now, this plan will push you forward and help you stack on more muscle and strength in just 6 weeks. So head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net now to grab your free 6-week workout plan.